Hello, everyone. Welcome to Intrigue the podcast, where we talk to people from different industries. Today, we're joined by Steve and Darlington. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hi, Raisa. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So I'm excited to dig into your career journey, but before that, let's talk about your childhood. So where did you grow up and what did you like to do as a kid, both like school-wise and out of school?
So I grew up in a town called Randolph, New Jersey. It's in the northern part of New Jersey, maybe in an hour west of New York City.
Mm.
So I did what kids like to do and when they're kids, play in the sandbox, run around, play baseball in the backyard, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, and I guess as far as school was concerned, I was interesting that I'm in the sciences and computer science, but I was just in writing and English a lot more than
Oh,
math and science when I was younger.
I mean, that'll be useful, like documentation, but we'll get to that. So when did you start like liking science and like computer science and all that?
Well, probably when I was around like 9 or 10, my dad bought a computer. So it was the first computer in the house, and I always played around with it and playing games like everyone does. But one of the first programming memories I have was probably about 10. Is that there was a game that probably people my age would be familiar with. It's called Snake. So
What does that do?
right, so it was like there's like a little pixel on the screen, and you had a snake that you controlled that you'd move it with arrow keys to go eat the pixels on the screen. And
Mm.
every pixel you ate, your snake got bigger. So the idea was that you didn't hit the walls or run into yourself. So you had to like plan your attack of how you're going to eat the pixels.
Oh.
So the first thing I remember with programming was we had the source code for that for some reason. So I was like reading through it, and that's like if statement. Okay, I know what an if is. And I was like, go to 80. I'm like, what the heck is go to mean? And like I read it more and more and more, and down below there could go to 10. I was like, oh, there's a line 10 up here. So that must mean go back here. And then 80, I'll go to that line. So I sort of like figured out that as like my first experience like code when I was like 10 or 11.
Oh, did you know what language it was written in?
It was some variant of BASIC. It was probably like GW BASIC or something at that time.
Oh, wait, how did you get the source code?
I don't know. So I don't know if it was something like, my dad had made like a teach yourself programming or something, but yeah, we had the source code for that game and, just poked around with it because I was curious.
Oh, wait, did your parents code?
No, my
Mm.
dad was a chemical engineer and my mom worked at libraries. So, yeah,
Oh,
nobody
that's where you got like your English and writing from.
possibly. Yeah.
Mm. Interesting. So after that game, like, how did your coding journey evolve, like in your teens?
Um, I really didn't do much coding as a teen. It's like
Oh,
I did a bunch of stuff with hardware. Like we'd go and I'd build my own PC. I built a couple PCs, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't until senior year of high school when I was looking at colleges, it's like, well, I like computers. Let me take a programming course in high school to see if this is what I wanted to do with my life.
how was that course?
It was interesting. Yeah, sound like bragging, but I seemed to be pretty good at it
Mm.
as I would finish my assignments early and then I program games in a lab.
Oh, wait, what kind of games did you program?
Sort of like it was. Trying to think how to describe it. It was based on Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Mm.
It would ask like the bridge keeper questions at the end if people are familiar with that movie. If you're familiar with that movie,
Oh, I'm
and
not,
it was
but
like,
just can you explain?
but it was just like it would ask you a random question, and like if you got it right, you cross the bridge. If you got it wrong, it would throw you off the bridge. And
Mm.
I was just coding that because I was just a nerd.
Oh, and like what language were you dealing with in high school?
That was Q Basic, another variant of Basic.
Okay. And what did you like about coding?
That's a That's a good question. I mean, I mean, now I kind of just like seeing, like building stuff, like seeing the result of, I type something in and something happens whenever I click a button. But at that time, I really don't remember, what I enjoyed about it.
Well, you were just good at it, so you liked it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I have an aptitude for it. And then, like, over time, I developed more of a love of programming.
Mm, got it. And like, were you considering other like career options at this point, or were you dead set on computer science?
So before that, again, I kind of got into this with a friend. Um, my high school had sort of an architecture program going on.
Mm.
So he was very artistic. He drew like his own comic books on the side and played with stuff. So we were looking for an elective to do together. And he's like, hey, there's this drafting design course. You want to do it? So I was like, okay, fine. And the way it worked was freshman year, you'd take drafting and design, which was sort of how to represent things in like a 2D space, like how to say this is like this many inches wide, that many inches wide, draw a schematic of something. And then sophomore and junior year would be architecture 1, architecture 2, and senior year was advanced drafting and design. So with that, you kind of got the whole picture of, what it means to be an architect or a designer. And throughout your 4 years of high school, you would design a house, and like all the different parts of the floor plan you had to do together, the different views of the house, all that kind of stuff. So for a while, I thought I was going to be an architect.
Oh, but why didn't you become an architect?
Well, part of it was, I think, junior, senior year, we were going to do an internship with a local architecture firm.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to take a couple of us and do an internship. But the project they were doing got put on hold because I think 2% of the ground was on wetlands. So they had to do like environmental stuff, and they couldn't build what they wanted to build there. And then, of course, architecture, I think it's like a 5 or 6 years in college, and then a bunch of internship or apprenticeship after that. So I was like, I'm kind of tired of school. So I'm like, let's see what else I can do. And then, I took the programming course, and I'm like, okay, this is what I can do.
Wow. So in high school, like you knew you wanted to do computer science. How about the college location? Like what were the factors that, drove your decision?
So I wanted a smaller school. So
Why is that?
I don't know. I just didn't want to get lost in a big school.
Mm.
It's like I don't know if I felt overwhelmed or something, but I know I wanted like a smaller environment where you could probably have more one-on-one time with the professors, know more people in your class, that kind of stuff.
Oh, did you go to a public high school or like private?
Public high school.
Okay.
Yeah, so the college I went to was roughly the size of my high school. So I think my graduating high school class was like 2,100 students. And my college is maybe like 2,500.
Oh,
so,
like for all 4 years?
Yeah.
Wow. So come college, like how was your transition from like high school to college?
It was a little rocky to start with. I think my freshman year was okay. Sophomore year, I kind of was very lazy. And I suffered a little bit from that.
Oh, what were you doing? Like playing games or?
Pretty much.
Mm.
Hanging out with friends, playing video games, that kind of stuff.
Mm. But how was?
Wasn't studying too much.
Then what happened after sophomore year?
I don't know, got my act together. A lot of it was, I think, I got over like the required courses because I went to a liberal arts college.
Okay.
And you have to take, art history, a bunch of other stuff not related to your major.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was junior, senior year, I took all computer science courses. I was a double major in poli-sci, so I took a bunch of political science courses.
Oh.
So it was like all stuff I was interested in. So I was almost a 4.0 my last 2 years. So it was like, this is what I wanted to go to college to study.
Wait, why poli sci? Did you declare that like in college or like from high school? Like you knew you wanted poli sci as well?
Yeah, I did that in college.
Uh,
So I was always interested in politics, and I had a really good professor for one of the early classes. So it ended up like whenever the semesters came around, I was like, okay, what course is this guy teaching? Okay, that looks interesting. I'll take that course. And after a while, it was like, well, I have almost enough credits to be a double major, so I might as well just go for it.
oh, so you were following your teacher. But
Yeah,
were there,
he's probably in my entire career from like kindergarten to through high school. Or through college. He was my favorite teacher of them all.
what makes him like your favorite?
Just kind of his teaching style and the way he engaged with the students, and he was always very encouraging, even though he and I were not aligned in political vision at all.
Mm.
But like he was always very fair and very gave me good criticism to strengthen my arguments and that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow. Like learning to disagree. I think that's important in like your software engineering career, but we'll get there.
Mhm.
But your computer science courses, like what were you specializing in? Like what courses did you like at the time?
So we had kind of the basic, what I think is the basic computer science curriculum, where we had algorithms, data structures, algorithm analysis, operating systems, that kind of stuff. And then in electives, we did databases. And one I always think about is we did an AI course as an elective.
Mm.
That was really fun.
Well, what did you like about that AI class?
Again, it was just sort of like figuring out how to make the computer make decisions on itself,
Mm.
by itself. So like one of our early projects, we did kind of like a Roomba, where we had like a 3x3 square, and it was
Oh,
like, okay, there's a random piece of dirt, and your Roomba starts up here, and you had to figure out the best path to get to the piece of dirt.
did you figure it out?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
so we all wrote programs to figure it out, and then our final was the game Connect Four. You
Mm.
familiar with that game?
I mean, I know, but maybe the audience doesn't.
Yeah. So it's a kind of a classic game where you have plastic squares, plastic circles, red and green. The idea is to get or black and red. And the idea is to get them four in a row. And
Kind of like tic-tac-toe, but for.
yeah. So our final was to complete that. Then we'd also have in the lab, we'd compete against the other teams. So like you'd say, okay, my AI goes here, your AI went there, and like we'd play them against each other. And then we had
Mm.
somebody who was not in the course come in and do a best 2 out of 3
Oh.
to see if a human could beat your AI.
Oh, did the human beat the AI or no?
Not ours. We had a team of 3 people, and I think we had the undefeated AI in that class.
Wow, congrats. Wait, why didn't you go to AI like as a career?
I mean, I didn't really find that many opportunities for
Uh,
AI back in that time. I mean, not like it is now with, everyone's is looking into that. But 20 years ago, it was still very new and very, like, nascent. So,
mm, cool. So, like after college or your senior year, what were you thinking with regards to like post college?
I mean, like everybody trying to find a job.
Mm,
It was just, and I really didn't have any specific industry or anything in mind. I just wanted to find work.
oh, did you have like internship or research at this time?
No, I didn't.
Mm.
No, I didn't do any internships or anything. Um,
How was the job search for you at the time?
it was very rough. I mean, so I graduated in 2001, which was around the time of the dot-com bust.
Mm.
And then 4 months after I graduated, September 11th happened. So, it was very rough to find a job for me with no experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of in the same boat as people these days. It's like someone with 3 to 5 years of experience, and how are you going to get that if no one gives you a shot to start with, right?
Is that the chicken and egg problem? Like, to get a job, you need experience, but to get experience, you need a job.
Exactly.
So how did you land your first job?
So my first job actually wasn't in software.
Oh.
I worked just to have work and money coming in. I worked in the stockroom of a warehouse, and I counted screws all day.
Oh, wow. I'm like, wait, when did you start this job and how long did you last?
I started December of 2001, so it was a couple months after I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for maybe 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously I was looking for programming jobs and everything along the way. But that was just, again, to make some money.
What did you learn from those 4 months of counting screws?
It's not what I want to do with my life.
Okay.
To be honest.
Cool. Wow. So you were like interviewing and applying like throughout these 4 months.
Yeah. And so in college, we'd done C and Java as our main languages. And I had seen most of the jobs I had been seeing were for Visual Basic or C++. Mm-hmm. So I decided to teach myself those 2 languages. Got through Visual Basic, never got through C++ because I got a job. So
in Visual Basic?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so
wow.
Again, go ahead.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, so at that time it was .NET was just coming out. So again, probably like a lot of people trying to find work, I thought, okay, I don't have experience, but certification might help me. So I went for Visual Basic certification in .NET.
Oh, interesting. Well, congrats on landing your first job. Well, how was, transitioning to your first developer role?
So that one, it was actually not a true developer role.
Oh.
So like I said, I got certified, and there was a company near me that was a Microsoft testing center, because like they certify the testing centers to get certified. And they also did training at that place. So after I took the test, someone there who I'd got to know was like, hey, our lead instructor wants to talk to you. So I'm like, okay. So he's like, we have a 3-month contract. So you can come in as a TA. And this is how much it pays. This is your benefits. If you want it, show up at 8 o'clock on Monday. If you don't, just give me a call. So I took it. So it was a TA position. And I had 3 responsibilities. During labs, I had to help the students out. And I also was the first pass in their homework. So it was kind of like doing code reviews. I had to interview people to see if they could make it through the program that they were training. And the third responsibility I had was I had to translate their curriculum from VB to C# because they wanted to start teaching C#.
Oh, nice.
So I got paid to learn C#.
So you learned how to make good code reviews, how to interview people, and learn C# and got paid. Wow. So how did you like that job? I'm guessing you liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Like you said, I learned a bunch of skills that I've applied throughout my career. Obviously interviewing, even like, and then with the TA part, teaching the students, trying to figure out how I can get them to the answer without telling them the answer. So I think like I kind of take that in my mentorship roles today, where I'm like, okay, what do you think? And try to lead somebody to that direction rather than saying, do this. Right.
Wait, who taught you how to teach?
I don't know. It's like I really didn't have a teacher to teach me how to teach.
Oh, was it that poli-sci professor?
It could be.
Mm.
Could have just picked it up. And also it was, and I'd put myself in the student's shoes where it'd be like, I think people learn better if they kind of like figure things out by themselves rather than you telling them what the answer is.
Yeah.
So it's like, how would I want someone to lead me to this answer? And I would try to articulate that to the student when they needed help.
Wow. So you also learned how to teach. Mm-hmm. Wow.
So I learned a lot in 3 months.
Oh yeah, and you got lots of money. So once those 3 months ended, like what were you thinking about your next step?
So again, I wanted to find I wanted to find a programming job. Mm-hmm. I knew I didn't really want to stay teaching. Not that I had anything against it, but I wanted to, do more coding.
Yeah.
Because I enjoyed it. So I, started looking for jobs, and I found one at a small. It was like a 3-person consulting shop. And I interviewed, and they gave me an offer, and I took it.
Oh wait, 3 people? Like, can you tell us more about the nature of the work?
So it's basically a mom and pop shop. So it was like a husband and wife. The guy was the president and the head coder. His wife was like the accounting person, and they had one other developer, and then me. Oh,
I'm guessing you had clients and you coded for those clients.
Yep. So we had the big one was a print shop in Atlantic City. So they did they printed mouse pads, custom mouse pads. Like if you wanted a wrap for your truck for your business, they'd print those. They did a lot of the posters for the boxing matches in Atlantic City.
Oh.
So the application we did was sort of a job tracking thing. So they had an estimation software that they had purchased where they'd figure out, okay, this is our bid for this project. And they had QuickBooks to do their accounting. And they wanted us to write basically the in-between part, right? Take it from estimation through the entire production process to shipping and billing. So the application, we had it print out barcodes so they could take it on the shop floor and scan the order into a machine. And there was a touch screen where they figured out start this process, start that process, end that process. The application printed labels for FedEx and UPS to ship. And, so it was like the entire operation that we handled for them.
So what did you learn in this, first coding job? What did you struggle with?
I learned that I didn't know a lot. So it's like in college, you probably had this experience too with your first job. In college, you learn all the theory, you learn ideas of how to code, but it's like once you get there and you have to build something and deliver something, and talk to a DLL or a third-party API, or get to something that you haven't done before. You're like, okay, what do I do now?
So how did you overcome that?
I just pushed through it. I'm like, okay, and just trial and error. Tried this, okay, didn't work. Tried that, didn't work. Tried this, didn't work. Tried that, oh, that worked. Next thing. Yeah.
Wait, did you guys have Google or Stack Overflow at the time?
Google, yes. I forget when Stack Overflow started.
Oh, so
it's definitely not as good as Stack Overflow is these days.
Were you reading stacks of books? Did you have books all over you?
So some of it, yeah.
Wow.
Some of it was books. Yeah,
Oh man. But how were like the other developers? Like, did you gel well as a team? Like, tell me more.
I think so. Yeah, and then sort of it was one big application, but as with any team, I worked on this part, the other guy worked on that part, and we kind of had an idea of where things had to touch each other and get together. Um,
Mm.
and we were basically like 10, our desks were 10 feet from each other. So we could like turn and ask a question or talk about something all the time.
Mm. So how did your role evolve in that company? Or did you leave like after a few months? Like, tell me more.
Yeah. Yeah. I left there after about 9 months.
Oh, why did you leave?
Better opportunity somewhere
Mm.
else.
So tell me
Um,
more about that other opportunity.
yeah. So, and also this consulting company, it was a 1099. So it was a contractor position.
Ah.
So I was paid hourly. If I didn't work, I didn't get paid. So it was like I didn't have paid vacation or sick days or anything. And the position that I found was salaried, which was nice. Um, always good to have a salary. Uh, Obviously, health benefits, paid time off, and after 1 year, you can get 401k. So,
Mm.
and it was more money. So I was like, all right, I'll take this other job.
Mm. So what was that other job?
So it was at another consulting company. It's called the Digital Group, and it was a lot bigger than that. I think when I started, there was maybe 25 people, and when I left, there were probably about 60 people because they were growing a lot while I was there.
Mm. So like what did you work on and what did you learn there?
So again, we had probably had other clients, but we had one big client, which was a legal information services company. So like if you want to sue General Motors for something, you wouldn't send a lawsuit to their office. There would be a law firm, outside law firm that handled it. And they'd have different law firms for like class action suits, workman's comp, that kind of stuff. So this company routed the lawsuit to the correct law firm to handle it.
Mm.
And what we were doing is they had a legacy desktop application that they wanted to make an intranet application. So we basically had to write, this was C Sharp, ASP.NET internet application for them.
Mm. Like what was your role there? Did you like lead a team or were you executing at this point?
So I was executing at that point.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, just came in and said, okay, here are the requirements, build this feature, the thing. But pretty quickly, the other developers kind of knew that they come to me to ask questions, probably because I had been so deep in .NET with the certification and the training course. It's like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Let me ask Steve how to do it. So it quickly became, okay, I'm the expert here.
Mm. Nice. So once you became an expert, like what happened?
um, I got more responsibility, bigger. Started working on a project by myself, and it was the one project that gave me. I really didn't want to start with, because it was a database migration, and I really didn't know too much about databases. I'm like, I'm not a DBA. I'm a programmer. It's like, why do you want me to do this?
Mm.
And it was also going to our client's office in New York City, and I didn't want to really travel into New York City.
Because traffic, right?
Right. Or I took the train and the subway, and that's expensive after a while. But I did it, because they told me to. Um, right.
Oh,
But
so what did you learn from that experience?
I learned a heck of a lot. So our parameters were, so we had a go live weekend, and they wanted to do a migration from an old DB2 database to an Oracle server. And they wanted it to run in 4 hours. So that was my goal. I had to get this to run in 4 hours. So I wrote the import and export program, and I wrote a whole bunch of like that kind of stuff. And my first run, after tried a bunch of times, it failed. Tried a bunch of times, it failed. My first run, I didn't finish, but I extrapolated it, and it would have taken 10 days to migrate the data. Obviously not acceptable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I learned a heck of a lot. I multi-threaded the importer and exporter. And then I, working with the DBA and another consultant they brought in, I learned a lot about writing queries, tuning queries, the internals of Oracle, how databases work in general, all that kind of stuff. And I spent months pretty much writing SQL, analyzing query plans, making this thing as fast as possible.
And then you did it.
And I did it. The migration weekend, like I said, our target was 4 hours. It finished in 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Wow. So I guess the takeaways are like ask for help because you had that DBA and that consultant, and then learn as much as you can, try things. What else would you add to, your learnings?
Just following up the try things. It's like, I didn't know about databases, and I really wasn't interested, but I'm like, okay, I got to do this. I'll do my best. I always just want to do the best I can with whatever I do. So I'm like, I'm just going to give this my whole focus and see if I can actually do what they want me to do.
Cool. So be open-minded, just tackle challenges. Like, don't be afraid of challenges.
Don't be afraid. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So once you did the whole migration, like what was next?
So this was a large project. So the next phase, they had a couple more things they wanted to do. They had some web service thing that they wanted to do. They wanted an integration with SharePoint they wanted to do. So they had a couple more things on the next phase of this project. And I asked for like the web services one because I was interested in web services, but I didn't get that one. I got my least favorite one, which is the SharePoint one.
Wait, what's SharePoint?
I don't even remember at this point. I want to say it might have been like a custom, I don't know if it's a CRM thing. Probably someone's going to yell at me for that. I don't know.
Wait, how did you deal with getting projects that you didn't like? Because, as a developer, you don't always get the sexiest projects, right?
Again, like I said, just do your best. Don't half-ass it. Just because one of the things that you want to do, especially early in your career, is to be reliable, be dependable, be someone that, like a senior or a product owner can say, okay, I can give this task to Raisa. I know she's going to do it and get it when I need it done. Right. So
cool.
That's just grin and bear it is what I did.
Wow. So you did that, I assume.
I started on it, but that's around the time I left the company.
Wait, what happened? Why did you leave?
I wasn't very happy there anymore. That the whole commute to New York was kind of dragging me down. Because it was, I'd leave my house at like 6:15 in the morning and get home at like 7 at night. And it was just like,
That's a lot.
Hour and a half to 2 hours on the train and subway every day. And
one way?
Yeah, one way.
Oh, wow. Dang. So what was this next opportunity? Was it also a C# coding job?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had one of the guys who started at that company at the same time I did, he and I became good friends. And he had left that place to go to a company called ALK Technologies. And then a couple months later, he knew I was looking and wanted to leave where we were. And he's like, "Hey, we're hiring more C# guys. So if you're interested, give me your resume." So I did, and I came in and I basically talked to 3 VPs, and then they gave me an offer.
Wow. Like, did you have to do like a coding interview? Because I don't know what the process was like way back then.
At that time, I didn't.
Oh, wow. Lucky guy.
Yep. And you could probably blame me for the coding interview because I said, "Well, we're hiring people to write code. We should have them code during the interview."
Oh, let's talk about hiring later. But anyway, you joined ALK Technologies, which was like a transportation company.
Logistics. They did, or they do, like mapping and GPS navigation software aimed at the trucking industry. So commercial.
Awesome. So, like, how did you transition there, and what was your role there?
So I came in as a software engineer.
Okay.
And since I'd worked with my friend before, we were on the same team, and we kind of had a shorthand, and we had an idea of what we wanted to do. So it was very early on, where the company was getting into more websites and stuff, so the companies could see where their trucks were at any time, and sort of a history of where they've been. So one of the things that we decided to do was create like a common framework for database connectivity, exception handling, kind of the low level responsibilities of an application. So the first couple months, he and I just wrote that. And we used some ideas from our previous work to say, "Hey, I liked this about what we had at the old company. I don't like what we had at the old company here." So we kind of made our own, tweaked what we knew from before. And for a while, a lot of our C# projects used that same database and exception layer because it was already written. So our first project was a website called Fleet Center. And it was to show real-time positions of company's fleet.
Oh.
So you can see where this guy was at this time, and because we had a mobile device that would send positions every 5 or 10 minutes, and it would update the website of where they were.
Wait, how did you do that?
Well, we had the data coming in and stored in a database, so we just had create the database and show that current position.
Interesting. And then, what was next after that?
So again,
in general,
Yeah, just some more projects along that way. Again, since I was one of the early .NET guys, we brought people in from, outside the company to help, or people with C++ background to help on that. And again, people kind of came to me because the .NET guy. It's like, "How do I do this?" "Okay, this is how you do this in .NET."
Oh, so you established a reputation as the .NET pundit.
Thanks for the plug.
Yes. You should check out Steve's blog, which I will link down below. But anyway, how did you influence ALK Technologies throughout your career there?
Well, I mean, so many ways. Trying to think.
Tell us about it.
So I've been at ALK, which is now Trimble Maps, for over 17 years.
Oh wow!
So that's a lot of influence. So I've made sure that we upgraded from .NET 1 to .NET 2 when it was along the way, just the different versions. Helped move from a server in our closet to the cloud. This is
Like literal closet.
a little closet, and it was on the same network as all our PCs.
Wow.
um, so again, this is like all the tech side. I because of my experience with migrating the databases, I tuned our databases. I stressed the importance that we should have a DBA on staff to handle the stuff that I didn't know. Trying to think. I mean, just like a whole bunch of that kind of stuff.
Mm. Wait, how did you like evangelize your ideas and earn trust from people so that you were able to influence, the engineering org?
So I had a really good manager at that time. So a lot of times that like we just talk about something, and I think like she would kind of go around and talk to other people about my ideas. So she kind of boosted, what was my booster, helped say, hey, Steve had a good idea over here. We should probably do this. And she used her influence to sort of bring my stuff up to the fore. And I guess that kind of helped me where it's like, okay, she also gave me credit for all this stuff. So it kind of built my reputation among, higher ups in the company where I'm like, okay, he's got good ideas. He knows what he's talking about. So then they started listening to me as well as listening to her, telling them to listen to me.
Oh, wow. So having a good leader really helps.
Yeah.
Wow. Dang. And I guess you've been able to, pay that forward, to younger developers, newer developers. Can you talk about like how you mentor new people? What's your approach? I think you talked about, not giving them the answer right away, but do you have anything you want to add to that?
It's kind of not trying to kind of phrase this. I mean, it's a cliche, but everyone is different. So you kind of have to tailor your advice to each person you're talking to. So I mean, I've had some people where it's like you can tell that they were gonna be great, like they had a rock star. So you just tell them, keep doing this. You can probably work on that. There are other people who would come to me and say, I've just taken on this responsibility and I'm kind of struggling. There's one guy, I'll give an example. One guy, he became a team leader. And he's like, now I have the people reporting to me and I don't know how to get my own work done anymore. So I kind of pointed him to a book. I'll plug this to Getting Things Done by David Allen. I love that book. And then I showed him my systems that I use to say, okay, get my stuff done as well as having my team get their stuff done. So I'm like, this is what works for me. Hopefully it'll work for you. If not, you can tweak it, figure out your own thing. But sort of like these are some guidelines of how to, balance, your work with helping other people, which is part of your work as a team lead.
So like getting to know people's problems in specific.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And then, I want to talk about like your transition to team lead. Like, how did you transition? Like, what did you struggle with?
So again, so the company was growing, expanding, and we kind of needed like more leadership. So we used to just be like one giant team. So then we started identifying people, senior people, to lead groups of developers. And so I was one of the first team leads. We split the .NET team into two teams. So I took 3 or 4 devs. The other guy took 3 or 4 devs. And I'm trying to remember the rest of your question.
Like, how did you transition? Like, what did you struggle with?
Right. So I kind of struggled with some of the more people side of things. It's like, I don't know if that's much in my wheelhouse. So like trying to figure out Raises.
Pay raises.
Pay raises.
Mm.
Like that I kind of had trouble with. I struggled with trying to figure out. I had a feeling like, am I doing enough to up these people's careers? It's like, am I holding them back? Was something that I was wondering. I don't know if it's like self-confidence or something. It's like, am I doing the best to make them the best that they can be? And there were some people that, there was one guy I was having trouble with because he wanted to be a senior engineer, and like, he didn't meet what our company thought as a senior engineer should be.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of time trying to figure out how to explain what he needed to do. And I don't think I ever got that across to him.
Mm.
So like that kind of stuff I was not good at.
So how did you learn those skills, like communication and, mentorship?
Trial and error. and I looked at, I talked to our director of engineering, talked to other team leads, tried to figure out, their styles, how they did stuff. And that's sort of, hopefully you have a good organization where you are, that you have peers that you can bounce ideas off of and talk about, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. Sort of what other people do in that situation.
Mm. So did you have like a, community of like leaders at the time? Like you bounce ideas off each other. Was it like a regular meeting or was it just ad hoc conversations?
More ad hoc.
Okay. There was nothing formal.
Not really at that point, no.
Okay. Cool. So you became a team lead, and then how did your career evolve after that?
So at that point, so I was a senior engineer, team lead.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, my manager left, so I started to report to the director of software engineering. And so we had our first review, and he asked me if I had any questions. And I don't know why, but I asked him what would take for me to become a principal engineer. And I just kind of saw shock on his face. It's like,
good shock or bad shock?
It's like, I don't think he had thought about, what thought about, what it would take for me to become a principal. So he's just like, give me a couple days and I'll get back to you. So like 2 days later, he came back and kind of gave me some guidelines of what I can do, just sort of like, certain things I was already doing, just amplify those. Like I had been doing some like lunch talks with my team, to figure out, to like show this is a better way to estimate projects. This is why developers are bad at estimation. This is how you can get better. I did some talks about like SQL. Like this is a good way to write queries. This is a good way to optimize queries. So it was a lot of teaching, again, going back to
your TA job.
And I was also looking at ways to improve our processes, like more standardized code reviews, bring in more test-driven development, more unit tests. So we just the director of engineering said, keep doing that stuff, keep executing good code with few defects as I had been doing, keep up with the architecture stuff I was doing, and just like keep mentoring junior devs. And so that's what I did. Kind of had my foot on the gas for 2 years, just doing that stuff as much as I could. And then I became principal engineer.
Wow, congrats. Anyway, before we move on, let's sort of break down, the hierarchy of, software dev. So there's entry level, mid level, usually senior, and then principal. This is like the technical track. There's like a management track, but we're not going to talk about that because I don't think you've been a manager before, or have you?
Not really.
Okay, cool. So like, what's an entry level dev and like how can they move up to, mid level? I know it's different from different companies, but like in your experience.
Right. So, yeah, so an entry level, your title would probably be program analyst or software engineer one.
Mm.
Pretty much what you're going to do is get bug fixes. Basically, say QA reported this bug, got to fix it. You might get a small feature, and you're pretty much just going to be coding the whole time. And so to get to the next level, which would be software engineer two, sort of, there would be like two things that you probably have to do. First one is be really sharp technically. So try to deliver code on time when people expect it, and try to limit your defects. So try to make sure like QA doesn't find much or anything in what you write, which should be anyone's goal throughout your career, right? Mm-hmm. But again, like I said, if you do those two things, deliver on time and deliver good code, you're going to be getting the seniors and your product owners are probably going to notice that, give you bigger things. They're going to be able to depend on you. Say that, hey, I know Raisa is going to get this done on time and at a good rate. So you're going to get bigger things, get more things, rather than going back and fixing something that you just wrote, right? Mm-hmm. So just keep forward progress is good. The other thing is sort of make things better for people coming behind you. Like I know whenever you first started on a team, you kind of wrote a new developer guide,
yes.
Right? So it was documentation of where to find things, how the team does certain things. That might seem like a small thing, but again, the seniors and product owners are going to notice that. And then, they're going to say, hey, Raisa's responsible. She looks out for other people. The people coming behind you are going to appreciate that too. Mm-hmm. They don't ask the same questions that you asked.
Mm-hmm. So, like, to summarize, like from entry level to, let's say, mid-level, you have to be dependable, reliable, look out for your team, and make things better than what you found it. Yeah. Cool. So mid-level, like what does a mid-level engineer do?
So again, depends on the company. Mid-level engineer, you'll probably get, a whole, like larger features. Depending on the company, you might get a small project to do by yourself. Again, you're going to have a senior or an engineering manager kind of help you design and architect the solution, but a lot of the coding is going to be on you.
Cool. And like, how can a mid-level engineer rise to a senior level? Like, what does it take?
So again, be technically competent and reliable. I'm going to stress that because I'm I like the tech side of stuff. But and also kind of be proactive. Again, like so if you're in the code and you find something that's crummy, take the time to refactor it and fix it without being told. Try to proactively find ways to improve stuff. And also at this point, you're going to start wanting to work across teams. Like if you deliver a feature to QA, kind of help them out to understand your feature. If they report a bug, work closely with them to, reproduce it if the steps aren't clear and figure out what it is. So it's a lot of communication with people not necessarily in your programming team, but, maybe another department or maybe another team that is using your system or your system uses. So sort of like that cross communication.
Okay. So it's like basically entry level, but with more, on steroids, I guess. Cool. So mid-level to senior. Okay. Now we're at senior. Like, what does a senior engineer do?
So a senior engineer, you probably have like one or more products that are basically yours that you will own, full stack. Uh, you probably design it by yourself. You might have some devs working in with you that you will have to coordinate with to get stuff done, design a feature. You might have to help them if they're a junior dev to get the feature done. Help them out with anything they're stuck with. Code reviews, unless your company does code reviews, up and down. Seniors do a lot of code reviews. And you'll probably be working with product people a lot more closely to define the requirements and figure out what needs to be done.
And then, like, are you architecting like the, software architecture end to end? Like, is that a senior engineer's scope?
Depending on the company, a lot of companies probably it will be.
So, like, how does, let's say, a mid-level engineer learn like good software architecture practices and design patterns so that they'll be able to design systems on their own?
Well, hopefully you'll have people in your company that you can learn from. So whatever system you're working in, pay attention to how it's built, so you can learn from example. I'm a reader, so I'll read books. I'll also watch a lot of conference videos, like go to a conference. I like a lot of their stuff. So sort of, just soak up what's around.
Cool. So from senior to, let's say, principal, I know it's different in different companies, but like, what does it take to, go to the principal level?
So that one is probably more than just technical to become a principal. So you want to look at like processes, like what processes in your development can be improved. What tools might be better than tools that you're using now, and also look out for trends. So like, if you're a couple of years ago, a lot of stuff was running on Windows machines under IIS, and then Docker became a trend. So sort of like evangelize a new trend like Docker containers for your tech stack. Look out for things that could blow up in the future. Like, hey, this database is getting big. If we onboard a giant customer, it's going to tip over. So we got to figure out what to do about this data and this system before it becomes a problem. So kind of like that proactive stuff is very important at the higher levels of the company.
I think like it's applicable at all levels, right? Being dependable, reliable, proactive, and like looking out for your team or your company, like when you're higher up. And what do you say? So
I would think so, yeah. I mean, obviously, as you get higher, you'll get more weight on your opinion. If you're at a good company and you have good people around you, even an entry level person can say, "Hey, I think this is a problem." Maybe a senior might not address it right away, but they'll appreciate you raising stuff like that.
So be proactive.
Exactly.
Wow. So let's talk about like hiring, since you influence the hiring process. Like what's a good hiring funnel? Like what's the best way to hire talented developers in your opinion?
So what is a good way? So I'll say at our company, our recruiters are very good. It's like they send us some quality candidates. So like I'm not sure how they find them, but
you get them.
But I get them. So on that point, my philosophy is, like I said before, I'm hiring you to code, so I want to see you code in an interview. I know some people don't like that. I had one guy who kind of his internet failed when I asked him to code something on an interview.
So what do you look for, when you're interviewing a candidate and they have to code in front of you? Like they might be nervous, but like what do you look for in a candidate?
So I mean, I'll take nerves into account. I'll take the fact that it's kind of an artificial situation into an account. But it's obviously if they can write the solution, that's like gold, right? But also like you can see that if they understand what you're trying to get at, or like if they get stuck, they understand your hints, they take your hints, and I think thought process is very good too. So like my advice to anyone in a coding interview is you kind of want to talk while you're coding, or at least say, hey, I think I want to go this direction, and then write some code. And then if you say, okay, that didn't work, I want to try this next, and then write some code. So your interviewer kind of knows what you're going through to get to the solution.
So here's my next question. Like, how does the skills that you assess in an interview translate to, job success, like success on the job?
I mean, we kind of look for the whole, look at everything in an interview, so not just coding. We look at their communication. So if this person can get their ideas across, that's good. I mean, that's obviously good when you hire somebody. If they're having a problem, or if they have an idea for something, if they can tell you what they want. Also listening, if you have to give someone a hint in an interview and they don't get it, that's kind of a red flag. If you hire them, it's like, how much time am I going to have to take to explain this feature to somebody? Right? So if they have good listening skills, that comes across in an interview.
And also like clarifying questions. Like if, let's say I don't understand like your hint, I would want to ask questions so that I can understand it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and questions again, and the quality of the questions too. That's also a good indicator. So it's like, okay, if I hire this person and they don't understand something, are they just going to say, I don't understand? Or are they going to give something specific? Like, I don't understand this part. It's like, do you mean this? That kind of thing.
So how does a developer, or I guess entry-level developer, ask good questions?
Don't ask, how do I do this?
So what should they ask?
Right. Just try to be specific about what you're trying to accomplish. Trying to think trying to think of some good examples of questions. I think it probably would be good is like if you try something first, and be like, hey, I tried this and it works. Does this make sense? Or I tried this and it didn't work. What should I do? So sort of like, like kind of give the other person something to work with, right?
So I guess like try something and then tell them what you tried and the outcome of what you tried. And then also like be specific, right? Like what error are you getting?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, I got an error.
Yeah. Or it doesn't work. You're like, okay, my compiler tells me this. What does this mean? It's like, have you ever seen this error before? Because again, that would it would help funnel the answer that you're going to get to what you need to solve your problem, right?
Right. So like try to get as specific as you can. And then I guess like how does one balance between like trying things and asking for help? Because I think like as a young developer, I struggled with that.
Right. Yeah, because that can definitely be something a young developer does where you're off, 3 days banging away on something where you could have asked a question and gotten your answer in 5 minutes. Right? So, again, that's It's trial and error. You got to learn, but don't be afraid to ask a question. Um, don't. We've all been there, right? People like me who have been doing this for 20 years. I started out, you know, not knowing anything, having to figure stuff out on my own. So it's like we know that you don't know everything, and you're gonna have to ask questions. Um, so yeah, don't be afraid.
And like even as senior engineers, like nobody knows everything, right?
Right. Yeah, I bounce ideas off all the time off of other senior engineers, engineering managers. Be like, hey, I'm thinking this. Have you ever done this before? Does this make sense? And then they'll come back. Yeah, that makes sense. Or I did something similar before, but there's this spin on it. And you sort of get ideas from people around you.
Cool. So I guess the next phase would be like code reviews. Like how does a entry level dev write a good pull request for other people to review?
Um, so try to make your code like as clear and readable as possible. Sort of just follow good practices. Hopefully, your company's following good practices, so you can look at how someone else structured their code, how they name their variables, that kind of stuff. And then what I tend to like to do is I put a short description in my PRs, like especially if something is not clear, or if there's like a specific use case that you really can't understand from the code. Be like, hey, in this scenario, this is supposed to happen. There's this business rule for something, just so the reviewer has a context of what they're looking at. Because they can just look at the code and say, okay, this isn't going to throw an exception. This isn't going to be a null reference. But they might not know if your code is actually correct. Right? So if you give them context in the description, then they can say, hey, did you look at this case? Or I don't think this does exactly what you think it's going to do. So they'll know more than, because the answer is in your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be about communicating what's in your head to the person who's going to be reading your code.
And then as a more senior developer, like how do you approach code reviews?
So one of the things that I've learned over time is like someone might not write the code the way that I want them to, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. So it's like, I wouldn't have done that, but it makes sense.
What do you do in that case?
More often than not, I'll say it's okay. Because if it's just a preference, be like, okay, this is my style, this is their style. But if something could be a problem, obviously I'll say that could be a problem.
And then with code reviews, like there can be, disagreements. Like the person who wrote the code might not agree with you. So like how do you, get your point across and, have a productive debate?
So I mean it's all about like keeping an open line of communication, right? And an open mind too, because like everyone's going to approach code in a different way. So again, it's like if they don't do it your way, it doesn't mean it's wrong. Sort of like keeping the end goal in mind. What are you trying to build? Who's the audience for this code? And it'll just be like, is this code maintainable too? Is there a certain quality to it? Because if you think it's going to be hard to maintain, then stick to your guns and be like, you should change this because this is going to be a nightmare to keep up with. But again, it's a dialogue.
So like on the topic of disagreements, like when it comes to, designing a system or software architecture, I think like there's multiple correct answers, right? There's no like hard and fast rule. So how do you go about those decisions and those trade-offs?
So that's one of the books I read. Their first law of software architecture is everything is a trade-off. So you kind of have to look at, again, what you're trying to build. What kind of system, what qualities of the system you need. Does it need to be reliable? Does it need to be fast? Which one is, obviously you would want all the attributes, but you can't have all of them all the time, right? So like, is reliability more important than speed? Speed more important than consistency. And then you'd have to figure out along the way, like which design meets those attributes that you're trying to hit. Right?
Also figuring out what you want and prioritizing what you want. And then like so, like people might argue, oh, should we use SQS or RabbitMQ? Like you can always argue about technologies, but like, how do you settle those arguments and like come to a conclusion?
So, I mean, the good way to do that is with data. So like you brought up SQS versus RabbitMQ. So they're both queuing systems. A way to send a message asynchronously or whatever. But each one has certain attributes. SQS. Well, it used to be SQS was fully managed and you had to run your own RabbitMQ, but now Amazon hosts RabbitMQ. But what I found is that Rabbit has better throughput than SQS. You can have larger messages in RabbitMQ than SQS. So like if throughput and like message size are things that are important to your system, you probably want to do Rabbit over SQS. And again, you can do it with other stuff too. Is you might have to do a small proof of concept with each technology and figure out, okay, this performs better in these cases, this performs better in these cases. Which one suits our end goal? Are we going to have to go through throughput? Is it reliability? It's like, are we going to have a very busy system? Is this going to be just like a batch processing system where it doesn't have to be, fast responses? That kind of stuff. You'd have to figure out what you're trying to build and then which option suits that need better.
So keeping the end goal in mind always.
Yep.
Awesome. And then, in any software always has bugs, like shit can happen. Like, how do you approach, like a production bug at like 2 a.m.? Like, what's your mentality? What do you do?
So the like I said, stuff happens all the time. So like, try not to freak out. Sometimes it's hard if a server's coming down at 2 a.m. But always try to keep your head about you. Because if you panic and fix something, like just not thinking about it, you can make stuff worse. So try to take a step back, analyze, okay, what is really going on here? And what can you might have to figure out what can we do right now to heal things, and what can we do to fix it permanently. So again, just like take a step back, take a breath, and then attack the problem.
Wait, how do you, stay calm at 2 a.m. when there's a bug? Like, do you meditate? Like any tricks you've learned, perhaps?
I don't know. I'm just a pretty calm guy.
Interesting. Wow. So, we've talked about like production bugs, systems design, writing good code. Like, is there anything else I'm missing? Like documentation? Like, how do you write good documentation and like what is required,
So, sort of my philosophy is like your intent and sort of the why is more important than like the how. Because you could be like, okay, you do X, Y, and Z, But it's like, why did you do that? It's like, what was your thought process to get to doing that?
And how do you benefit from like having that, why?
Because, I mean, anytime you're building software or anything, you at the beginning you make certain assumptions, right? There's a lot of stuff you don't know, and you learn as you go along. And there could be with software, if it's a long running system, the way you design it might not be the way the customers use it 2 years from now. So it's good to understand why it was built a certain way and sort of what your operating assumptions were at that point. Because it's easy to say in software, whoever wrote that 2 years ago didn't know what the heck they were talking about. It's like, we should completely rewrite this because this is garbage. But if they had a certain thing in mind at that point, it's like they might not have known all the things that you know now. So if you leave that note to whoever's coming behind you, even if it's you 2 years from now, it'll be a reminder, okay, we chose this technology, we wrote it this way because of these reasons, but the facts in the ground have changed, so we have to change our thinking, change how this is built now.
It's kind of like writing, having breadcrumbs along the way.
Exactly. You know how you got to where you are today.
Got it. And then I sort of touched on this earlier, like evangelizing ideas. But at the time, you had a supportive manager, but like, how do you do it as a, principal engineer? How do you preach your ideas and have people listen?
Good question. I mean, just sort of, I mean, again, start with the why. Be like, I think this is the way to go because of these reasons. And again, be open to any feedback you might get. And sometimes, with if you're talking like to your development team, if you make like a tech argument, know your audience is what I'm going to get to. So if you're talking to your dev team, it's like, hey, I think we should adopt this technology because of X, Y, and Z. You can definitely do tech arguments for that. But if you're talking to a business person, they're not going to care that something is, 10 times faster or it's the new hotness, right? They don't care. But it's like, hey, if we have this new technology, or if we spend time now to refactor this code, then your features are going to get done faster in the future. There's going to be fewer bugs in this code. So you kind of have the business end in mind when you're talking to a business person, and the tech end in mind when you're talking to the tech person. So it's all about knowing your audience of how you're going to get your idea across.
Interesting. And then, what am I not asking you?
What are you not asking me?
We talked about like mentorship, like tech lead, documentation, systems design, code reviews, and then like different tiers of software hiring. Yes. And then like different tiers of software development. I guess like any advice you have for, let's say, not developers, but people working with developers, like PMs and marketing managers, like how can they work best with software engineers?
I mean, I guess it's something I've kind of said before. Is sort of like, if you're a business person talking developer, start with your goal, what you want. Because I've had some business, like the product owners, come and say, hey, I think we should, it's like, I want you to write this specific thing, or like, they kind of not exactly tell you how to do a feature. It's like, I want you to email a customer, I want you to do this, but instead they should say like what they want, because the developer might have a different idea, like a better approach, right? I'm trying to think of a specific example. can't think of a specific one right now.
So, like, keep the end goal in mind and communicate it, right? Interesting. And then, any advice for young developers starting out their careers?
Keep learning. I mean, this industry changes constantly. There's new technologies, new paradigms, new ways of doing stuff all the time. I'm constantly learning. Just keep your eyes open for things that are coming up, and also look at the history too, because there have been. I think this is in a lot of industries too. It's like there's like a certain way of doing things, and like it works for a while and then doesn't work. So somebody tries something new, and something new works for a while, and then there's some problems with it, and then they start back on the first thing. So it's like kind of learn from what was there and what mistakes were made, and why things are done a certain way, and like don't just try to like upset the apple cart because you don't like something.
It ties back to the documentation point you had earlier, right? Like write a trail of like what decision you make and why. Cool. And then like what advice do you have for, leaders and managers mentoring younger developers?
The idea for even not just in developers, but like any industry or any company is it's kind of a cliche to use the word empower, but you kind of want to empower the junior people on your team, because they have a lot of technical skills. They might know some of the new stuff that you don't know. They might know more of a certain technology than you know. So kind of give them the opportunity to use their skills, use their knowledge, rather than being the guy who says, "Hey, do X," and they do X. Be like, "Hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish here," and then however you get to it, you get to it, right?
Also, as you said before, like keep the end goal in mind, communicate the end goal, and then let the team figure out to an extent, how you get there.
Obviously, to an extent, it's like you don't want to have them run wild, and you've got some scars that you've got along the way from 2 a.m. calls and servers going down and stuff like that. But just kind of trust them that they know what they're doing. And
cool.
where they don't know what they're doing, teach them.
And then what's your final piece of advice for people like trying to navigate their careers, developer or not?
Just stay open, stay curious. There's there's nothing is really like beneath anybody. So you can just try anything. Even I started my career counting screws. I had a degree in computer science, and it's not really what you should do when you have a career in computer science. But I did it because I needed to.
And then you got a TA job, even though you wanted to do a programming job. But then I guess like staying open and learning as you go, right? Amazing. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Steve, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Raisa.